Hey everyone, welcome to the Prophecy Roundtable. Great to be with you again. Man, there's so much going on in the world. And tonight we're going to talk about conspiracies and all that exciting stuff. Now, does the Bible talk about conspiracies? Yes, it does, to be fair. Okay. Now, if some of you have kind of been following my little path along this whole thing, somewhere between 2000, I don't know, 8 and 2012, I was hardcore into conspiracies. I watched way too much Alex Jones and others, and very interesting stuff. And guess what? A lot of it I still believe. However, I would caution us as we go into tonight's discussion. Not all conspiracies are profitable. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily false, but some are just plain, well, they're not helpful. And some are just plain crazy. Like, we got to tell the QAnon people that JFK is dead. All right. He's not coming back, despite the people that lined up in Houston. And what can happen with conspiracy theories is that they can quickly turn into cults. Right. And that's what's been happening with QAnon. So I really urge caution as we go into this. But again, it's not to say that they're all wrong or they're all false, but we need to be careful. So I've got, of course, my wonderful co-host, Scott is here. We're waiting for John. We think he's coming. Pray for him. I'm not sure if something came up, but oh, there's John. Okay. Hey, John, welcome. Right on time, brother. I was just talking about John showing up, and there you are. So we're so glad to have you. So we're just going to get into the text. But before we do, I want to let everybody know, hey, here it is, Corrupting the Image 3. Yes, this is a shameless plug. Of course it is. Corrupting Image 3, Singularity, Superhumans, and the Second Coming of Jesus. Notice there, it's number 1, new release. Pretty excited about that. So it's not coming out till February, but if you want to get the pre-release for 99 cents on Kindle, feel free to do that, okay? So just wanted to let you guys know about that. Really excited. It'll come out, of course, in paperback later, so you can avail yourselves of that. So, Scott, do you think we should start in Psalm 2? Is that a good place to start?
That's the best one. That's as far as a legitimate biblical conspiracy.
Fair enough. Well, let's do it. Okay, Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel against the Lord, against his anointed, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I've set my king on my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son. Today I've begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel. Now therefore be wise, O kings. Be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all those who put their trust in him. All right. Well, first of all, that's just a fantastic psalm. But we do see that the nations are going to come together and that they are conspiring. What are they conspiring to do? They're taking counsel against the Lord and against his anointed. Why? To break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. Apparently, God is not he's not taking that too seriously, right? So, Scott, take it away. What are your thoughts initially here?
Well, I mean, again, like you, I do caution what has been termed a conspiracy theory. Speaking of JFK, kind of coined in the '60s to for those that were believing that there actually was more than Oswald involved in the Kennedy assassination. I read and studied up on that years and years and years ago, and I mean, whoever is going to actually know, but that would be an example of the official story being put out initially by the government. You know, it's not true. In other words, there was so much smoke there, but we may never know the whole truth until the next stage when we can if that's something that we're allowed to do, delve into that and just out of curiosity. But
Do you think it'll matter then?
no, but it'd still be interesting to know exactly out in the millennial age and the next stage. It won't be like we're don't have any memories of what happened prior to that age. I don't know. I'm just assuming, but I think that is one way that things have been labeled conspiracy theories when they, there, as Doug mentioned before you got on, there is a lot of truth to things that people would call a conspiracy, and tracing it back through history. And again, the reason we were talking about a topic, and I'm like the biblical conspiracy. It is the king. Doug, you can help out there. Obviously, not me. What is that? The term for kings there? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be like. I mean,
it's Malche or Malchim, right? So Malcheot. So it's literally the kings of the earth, but certainly a king is one who rules.
right.
So it doesn't have to be like a king proper, I suppose, but that is the word that's being used.
And again, right now, those who actually rule are the ones that print the money and then loan out to the nations the money. Famous quote by Red Shield, which I don't think that is coincidence. That Rome is the red ones, Edom is the red ones, and then they adopted that name. And they say they don't really care who is elected or selected. The ones that control the money run the nation, and that's nothing new. And what happened with the federal, and I'm open quoting federal because it's not federal.
I want to point out this book here, just so you guys know. I've actually read up on this stuff. Okay, The Creature from Jekyll Island, by Edward Griffin. I got to meet the author. It was really cool. He did a fantastic talk, and this is probably 2012, I think, that I heard him talk, and I really enjoyed this. You know what I like about this is he cites his sources. I thought that was kind of cool. And sometimes the conspiracy people don't always cite their sources. And so, I don't think that the whole topic of the Federal Reserve is too much of a conspiracy. It may not be well known, but it is very well documented, right? People just haven't studied up on it. And that's what I appreciate about that. The Federal Reserve has all kinds of nefarious backgrounds, and why we even have such an institution is a larger question. But I'm definitely there.
We actually vacationed there once and stayed in one of the suites that some of those guys stayed in when they created that thing.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Look what happened.
There was nothing shaking in the room or anything in the middle. At least I was asleep. So,
right.
If you look at modern history, when a nation state goes rogue and refuses to have a central bank in which certain people can print money, that leader usually get deposed. I'm not saying that these leaders were necessarily good guys. But there's a lot of bad leaders in the world that they retain their positions. But if you do your studies on it in the recent 30 or 40 years and look and see who got overthrown, and you start studying, one of the issues is they wanted to go off the central bank system. So,
well, and sometimes they debase their currencies, and that will certainly lead to the downfall of a nation. I wanted to go to Revelation 19:19 because this is very much a parallel passage to what we see in Revelation or in Psalm chapter 2. And I saw the beast, the kings of the earth, right? There's that term, and their armies gathered together to make war against him who sat on the horse and against his army. Of course, it all falls to pieces, right? He's captured, and this is very much an echo of what it says there in Psalm 2, that the Lord who's in the heavens shall laugh in derision, right? He's not impressed by these puny efforts, but this doesn't mean that the world isn't going to try it. And I think the underlying message here is, why are the kings of the earth going to imagine or think or try to have, stage some kind of a coup? That's really what they're doing, right? I mean, I think this really begs the question, Scott and John, why is there a conspiracy against God? right? I hear sometimes that Satan's kind of like, well, I'm just going to take down everybody with me because I know that I'm doomed, and I'm not going to try to, I'm not going to try to, I'm going to lose. Okay. So I'm just going to try to take everybody down with me. And, if I can't win, then nobody can win. I think that's bogus. I think Satan firmly believes that he's going to win. He's the ultimate optimist. He thinks that he's going to pull this off. He knows that he's fighting a very formidable foe, but he's got plans. And so he has to do all this scheming to try to get things to go in the direction that he wants them to go. Now, in case you're wondering, I talk about that a whole bunch in Corrupting the Image, Volume 3. And the reason that I would suggest that the world's going to come together to fight against Jesus, they don't think that they're fighting the Lord Most High. They don't think they're fighting the great I Am, who is limitless in power. They don't think that. They think that they're fighting, maybe he's our creator, but he's not all powerful. He's not omnipotent in that sense. He has maybe some weaknesses. And by the time we get to that point in human history, the world is going to be at such a place that they are fighting for what they believe is an existential threat against planet Earth. And I believe a lot of it's going to culminate when the two witnesses come upon the planet. They're going to come, they're going to have superpowers. Let's not be coy about this, right? They're coming and they are going to stop it from raining for 3.5 years. They're going to turn water to blood. That's pretty crazy. It says that fire comes out of their mouth, or maybe they call it down from heaven, as did Elijah. They're invincible, right? Nobody can kill these guys. And it says that if anybody tries to come against them, that fire will come out of their mouths and just smite these guys. And they can strike the earth with plagues as often as they want. So when the beast finally rises up and kills these two, what's the response? The world is ecstatic. Finally, these two are gone. Now we can get on with living, right? This is why the world is so incredibly excited, because they were a huge, huge threat, not just a sideshow, but the main show for the first 3.5 years of what we call, Daniel's 70th week, for lack of a better word. Okay. So they are causing massive havoc upon the world. People are losing their fortunes. They're starving. It's bad. And then they resurrect. These two witnesses resurrect. They hear a voice that says, Aluhena, right? Come up here. And they hear that, and then they go up to heaven. Well, what's the whole thinking? Remember, not everybody has a Christian mindset. They're not thinking in Judeo-Christian terms. They're thinking, hey, we evolved over millions of years. We, quote unquote, know that there have to be other intelligent life forms out there. And quite likely that we, the human race came about because some DNA hitched a ride on the back of crystals or something, and it made its way to planet Earth. Or we were just seated here, kind of like in the movie Prometheus. And, maybe these two witnesses work for our creator. If you remember, if you saw the movie Prometheus, right? This uber rich guy, builds a spaceship, travels to a distant solar system, and there meets the creators. Turns out the creators are a couple of jerks, right? No, they don't like these guys. The creators have no interest in humanity. They don't love humanity. In fact, they hate us. And so that mindset very well could be what the world is going to see the two witnesses as. And so what they need to do then is to fight fire with fire, because these two witnesses that just resurrected, they're going to come back. How do they know? Because they said so, right? They kept saying they're going to come back, and that their leader, Jesus, Yeshua, is going to come back. And so everybody needs to find a way to fight these guys. And so if the beast has the power to kill them, maybe if everybody becomes like the beast, then they'll have power to fight against them, right? So I'm just talking about the end goal, right? This is the end game that Satan is working toward. And then if we kind of deconstruct this or work backwards, reverse engineer it and go back, we say, okay, so for that to happen, then all these other things have to be in place. And we have to have a certain system of where people are thinking, acting in such a way as well. So, as far as the conspiracies, I don't discount all of them. I just try not to get on the bandwagon completely on a lot of these things. But he does have to get the world into such a mindset and in a state of compliance and expectation that they're willing to go along with what the program has. Brothers.
So I guess, well, one question that pops into my mind is that if they're getting ready to fight against these guys when they return, if the ecclesia is still here, what are they going to do to the ecclesia? Are they going to do something to the ecclesia that is saying, "Hey, Jesus is coming back. You got to get ready. You got to," because that's what they'll be doing. I mean, look, one view is it's everything is outsourced to the 144,000 to do that, but then others of us who think we're here longer, we're supposed to be preaching and declaring this, this coming kingdom. That's part of our message, and I think it'll be even more part of our message. Because the coming kingdom requires a king, and so we're going to be telling them, hey, the king is, or whoever's alive at that time, the king is coming back, man. He's coming back. He's going to do everything that he said, and what he said was he's coming back to exact vengeance. So then the question becomes: so are they going to try to do to those declaring that message what they did to what the beast did to the two witnesses?
Man, that exactly. Absolutely. And think about it. If you're a believer and when the two witnesses were here, you're like, I think I like these guys, they're preaching a message of God, right? Of his laws, of his return and all this stuff. And if you're with them and then after they're gone, the world is going to not only hate them, but hate anybody that associates with them because they're going to be absolute traitors, right? And this is a traitor of the whole planet. Right? You're not just, a threat theologically, but you're now a threat globally. You're a threat to the very existence of humanity, right? This is humanity's greatest and darkest hour, our darkest hour of existential threat that has to be dealt with. So if you're not with the beast, then you're with those guys. Oh, you're an absolute traitor. You must be disposed of.
That actually is a good segue into Isaiah 8. If you could pull that up, we're going to talk about the conspiracy. And his message is going to be.
By the way, we didn't plan that segue.
Go on down to about verse 14 or 15, give or take.
Well, that's just how good we are, John.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. All right. Do not say
we're like the Trinity of prophecy.
Do not say a conspiracy concerning all that this people call a conspiracy, nor, and this is what is encouraging, nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. So I'm not the least bit concerned about what I actually see as truth with these puppets. I call them the head puppets. The puppet masters are the powers and the principalities, and what you're referring to in your book and what you were just referring to, that I believe are going to manifest at the end of this age, and it's going to get biblical, supernatural up in here. But I believe you took it down, but I believe that's going to be the message. Isaiah 8, Doug, is going to be the message, because the two witnesses are the two lampstands or menorahs and the two olive trees, and I believe they're the Lord of hosts, whom you shall hallow, whom you shall fear, let him be your head, and offense to both houses of Israel. He will be as a sanctuary, but a stumbling and a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, as a trap and snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And many among them shall stumble. They shall fall and be broken, be snared and taken. Bind up the testimony. We see John quoting that in Revelation. Seal the law, the Torah, among my disciples, and I will await on the Lord, who hides his face from the house of Jacob. And that's always interesting when you have the house of Jacob. That's sort of a all of Israel in maybe probably repentant state at that time. So it would be, I think that would include Judah, and it would include a lot of the church that have not fully come out of Babylon.
Scott, you broke up there a second. You said
Oh.
we were talking about hiding your face, and then you broke up on my
Okay.
What did you say?
Just that I
I just want to
believe
make
that
sure I don't need to correct it.
who hides his face from the house of Jacob. And I was just saying how the house of Jacob in Scripture is normally referring to sort of not Israel. Okay, so and the Lord will be hiding his face, but we will also hope in him. And so I just believe that this is going to be the message of the two disciples is repentance, a return to the true to the way, the way that Jesus walked, the way that he practiced, the first century faith before Greek philosophers and paganism started corrupting Paul and twisting him into a pretzel. But I mean, again, that's sort of where I'm at right now as to what happened to the way. He is the truth, he is the life, and so I think, and the world is not going to like this. They're not going to want to repent of their sins. They're not going to want to stop engaging in sexual promiscuity. They're not going to want, to place their faith in God and worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob the way he says to worship them. And I'm those of Judah that don't place their faith in Yeshua, they'll only have half the message. Those of the church that don't heed their message, that's my concern is that there won't be some full repentance. And you asked earlier about what would happen to the ecclesia. I believe some are going to be protected. I believe some are going to be imprisoned, and some are going to be killed. And the ones that don't come all the way out of Babylon during this time period of the two plagues, when they really start getting unleashed. So
is the way they're protected, is that one way that they're protected is they're not living faithfully, I think is what you're trying to say, and so God will take them out, or allow them to be taken out.
Yeah, or
will he punish them?
Yeah, he'll bring them under that Ezekiel 20. It talks about the wildernesses of the peoples, and he'll bring them under the rod of punishment and spit them out. I believe there's going to be something not exactly like the first Exodus, but very similar to it. In other words, supernatural, a supernatural leading, into the wildernesses of the peoples. There might be many wildernesses. And I believe right now what God's doing is calling people out to a pre-wilderness type thing, even if it's right where you are, John, in Ohio, right where Doug is in Colorado. In other words, I've not headed to East Tennessee yet to start living off the land. But I've also been, I guess I would say, for the past year or so, just coming out of Babylon as much as I can. I mean, I went to a few football games, but I don't watch any TV hardly at all anymore. Just trying to sever myself from this entertainment, the politics, everything.
Mm-hmm. Hey, let's take a question. Somebody's asking about that strange creature that has come up in front of the beast. Okay. Now, John, I would agree with you that it can be overhyped. Okay, I think that's possible. However, let's take a close look at this. This is at the very least called a griffin. All right, so that's one title of it. But this is also known as a manticore. And what exactly is this? If you guys have read Corrupting the Image Volume 2, I talk about manticores, and I'm going to show you guys a picture that I have in that book that goes all the way back to 2200 BC. All right, can you guys see the picture? All right, so
Keep zooming in a little bit.
Okay, where'd my little zoomer go?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the one right here, the beast that the guy's riding on.
Can you see that? Okay.
Or the woman, I guess.
Yeah. So this is the same creature. Okay, that's what I want to establish here. This is the same creature. This is called the Anzu bird, and this was essentially a composite of Enlil, Satan, and Ninurta, Nimrod. All right. And who is riding the beast? Ishtar. That is Ishtar, Inanna, Mystery Babylon, the woman that rides the beast. Right there it is. And in the back is Enlil, who's driving this whole thing. Okay, so so what I talk about in Corrupting Image 2 is that this woman that's riding the Anzu bird, who is also a form of Ninurta or Nimrod, we talk about the beast that was, is not, and ascends out of the abyss. So here we have, this is like bedrock, right? That's really important when you're gonna prepare some ground to create a building. You want to get down to bedrock, right? Because then you have a firm foundation, and then you build into that. So often we build a lot of things on shifting sands. That's one of my problem with some of the conspiracy theories. But when we get down to bedrock, then we really can't contest this anymore, right? So here we have this weird-looking statue that's showing up near the UN and maybe other places. And what does it look like? It looks like the Anzu bird. Now,
Hey,
Doug, yeah,
could you send me that image? I'd like to use that Sunday a little bit.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Because I think it's important. It's one thing I hadn't really considered.
Yeah, I mean, it's so this is why I want to go back to the bedrock, because once we see that this is an ancient image, 2200 BC, and already then it was highly stylized, it was already well understood that this was something that was already prominent in its day. Let me go back to some of the other variations on this theme. So there you can see right here, this is Ninurta, and he's on the Anzu bird. So sometimes he's sort of the lord over it, and sometimes he's it. Okay. Here, let's see, you can't see that one very well. So, but you can kind of see the relief. Here's another variation on that theme. So obviously this one is a whole lot bigger. Sorry, I can't make it. Gonna make it full screen. Yeah. All right. Can you guys see that? So there it is again, and you can see this Anzu bird again. It's a composite image of a lion. And remember, right? This is what gets crazy. Let's see if I have this picture. I hope I do. I don't know if I can find it, but yeah, unfortunately, I don't have it right here, ready, nice and handy. But what I think I can pull it up 1 second. I want to show that when Daniel, he talks about a lion that's made to stand on its feet. Okay, so let me pull up that image. You should be able to see it by now. No, it's not. Okay, I got her. 1 second. Try to get the production manager going a little faster here. Okay.
Fire that guy.
Okay. So this is the same creature. Here it's called a mushushu, but it's the same as the Anzu bird, right? They're really the same. These are variations on a theme. That's all they are. All right. So this is the mushushu, and he's standing on his feet like a man, right? What does it say in Daniel? And the lion will be caught that had 2 wings will then be made to stand like a man. Here it is. Okay. So the Anzu bird, the mushushu, the ushumgalu, these all mean great dragon. That's what it means, great dragon, right? That's really significant. Here is the same thing. Again, it's a variation on a theme, but you can see that these are all the same. This is actually a relief on the walls of the Ishtar Gate. Kind of interesting that it's the Ishtar Gate, right? And yeah, I mean, there's so much. So this creature, Satan, or the hybrid Nimrod, as it were, the future Nimrod, he's going to be the one that the woman rides, right? So he's the one who's giving, is giving support to the woman. But at some point in Revelation 17, he's going to hate the woman. What does that tell us? It tells us that he no longer has need for the woman. And the same thing in Daniel chapter 11, where it's talking about how, let's see if I can remember that passage properly, that the one that we would call the Antichrist. Let me just pull it up. That's just a little simpler. Daniel 11:37. Here we go. Yeah. So, okay. And so there it is. And it says that he shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall exalt himself above them all. Right. So, right, what I would suggest that what that's talking about is that the passage in Revelation 17, where he and the 10 kings are going to hate the woman, and in Daniel, he's going to have not the desire for women. I would argue that that is talking about this desire of Ishtar. Okay, it's not that he's gay. I don't think that's the case. But he's not going to care for any kind of lust that she represents, which included homosexuality, transgenderism, transvestitism, obviously heterosexual, fornication, etc. She represented all those different things. And he's not going to care for any of that, because there comes a point in this saga where she's no longer necessary. When you have the fish on the hook, you don't need a lure anymore. And that's where we're going to get to in Revelation 17. So, lots to say. Yeah, Scott, please.
That's what I'm talking. He doesn't need his puppets anymore.
Right. Exactly.
In other words, the puppets, the head puppets, whether it be false religious system or the political system or military or entertainment or media or anything, all of that is Babylon. It's there are some, like I've got a friend, he is everything in the Roman Catholic Church. They're everything. They are Babylon. And I think a lot of Christians, especially our dispensational brothers that have read Dave Hunt's book, or have read the two Babylons by Hyssop back in the 1800s, which everybody quotes him, and I think you pointed out this before, Doug, that's where sort of the trail stops, and he's considered the authority, but he didn't really even have any sources, or the sources were incorrect for some of his conclusions about Semiramis.
Yeah,
but
he made up a lot of stuff, sadly.
But on that topic, I do believe what you're saying as far as how God is going to use the beast to judge the harlot, the Babylonian system. Yeah. And that Babylonian system has been in place, ever since Babylon was raised up to judge Judah because of their apostasy. And we've been in those times of the nations since then. In other words, Israel as a nation has not reigned supreme over the world since the time of King David and King Solomon. And they were the ruling power then. And then upon King Solomon's apostasy, it essentially, Israel abandoned or abdicated its ability. And so God has allowed this beast system to arise. Babylon just became Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia became Greece. Greece became Rome, and we're still in the feet and the mingled clay and iron that is Rome. So again, we talk about a conspiracy, but it's not a conspiracy that there is an obelisk, right, that as a monument to our first president, that you've got all these Masonic symbols in the Capitol that all represent phallic symbols and
the father of our country.
Yeah, well, George
That's
Washington.
What he's called. I mean,
Yeah, and again, he was very likely a Freemason, and Thomas Jefferson was very likely a Freemason, and those are the upper levels of Freemasonry. It's not a conspiracy.
I was at Jefferson's house less than 2 months ago, and there's a obelisk over his grave.
Wow. Hey, let me just, this is the picture I was looking for. All right, so the guy in the middle there is Ninurta, and there you can see he's made to stand on 2 feet. He's got the wings, right? So he's gone from being the very stylized lion, that hybrid lion, or the Anzu bird. Now he looks very much like a man, and he still has those wings, right? So this is the progression that was going on with Nimrod. And let me just read from Daniel 7:4. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Right. So this is where it's all going. And there's one more picture I really want to point out. I think you guys are gonna trip on this one. Okay. Let's see if I can find that. These are all the pictures here in the book. Way too many. Hold on. Well, I can't find it. 1 second. But anyway, I want to show the snake, okay? Because I tell you, when you see the geoglyph that is etched in the earth near Mount Hermon, and the name of the snake is the Bashmu or Bashan, and it's literally in the ground, okay? So here, let me pull this up for you. It's pretty wild. So, okay, so here you can see this snake, right? This is a giant geoglyph. This is about maybe a third of a kilometer long. And right down here at this spot right here is Gilgal Rephaim. So it's about maybe a quarter kilometer north of that. And it's roughly, 35 kilometers south of Mount Hermon. Okay. So this is in the land of Israel, this geoglyph. I'm going to make it a little bigger so you guys can see it a little bit better, right? I mean, it's unmistakable that this is a geoglyph and that it's a serpent. And guess where this is located? In the land of Bashan. Okay. So this conspiracy that we're talking about.
We have one close to me, Doug, called It's in the Land of Ohio.
Yes.
We have a giant serpent now. We do.
Yeah, no, I know.
The largest in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, well, our friend Ellie Marzulli has done a lot of research on those, and people should check out his stuff. But this conspiracy goes back a long time, okay? Like a very, very, very long time. So anyway, I mean, it was a great question. I'm glad that Gary Allen asked that. But yeah, there's a few other questions we can get to in the chat, or if you guys want to.
Hey, I want to show another serpent, not as high tech. I don't have it on my computer, but yeah. It's a serpent on a pole surrounded by a crown, a wreath around it. So, I mean, guys, they're not hiding this from us. It's in plain sight. We have, I'm sorry, they haven't tried to really conceal it. If you actually study the symbols, and they know what these symbols mean. And the group that founded the World Health Organization, it's probably not a coincidence that their original logo was a rider on a white horse. So I don't believe this is a conspiracy. I believe they're showing us. It's those that actually have studied this. Yeah, people think you're crazy for believing it, but I don't. Again, it's time for people to wake up, and I don't mean get woke. I don't mean get Q woke, because I do believe here's the problem with this. There were a lot of people with the Q phenomenon woke, and we're talking about the light. And you even have Oliver North running around talking about the light. You don't see Jesus being mentioned. And so I do believe Joel mentioned earlier about a deception. And I think that might play into this as far as people see that some of these things that are probably very well true, like the Epstein situation and the elite and powerful who visited his island that just looks like a satanic ritual island. That's dark. That's evil. Most people, unless they're truly, truly evil and sick, are going to reject that. So that's where I do believe there might be a false light, a false deception that comes into play that's going to, in a sense, almost overthrow this evil cabal type thing, and order come out of chaos, and the false light wins. It's just a I don't want to say a theory, because I think I can back it up by the word and by from Genesis to Revelation, because he comes as an angel of light. But I do believe that's part of it. and what's going to play out over these next few years.
Yeah, good thoughts. So yeah, Joel asks, what will the great delusion be? Is that part of the conspiracy? Well, Joel, I'll just say that I don't know. I can offer my theory. Okay. So you can kind of take that or leave that. But what I believe, well, I think it's a huge conspiracy, but I think sort of the icing on the cake, if you will, is going to be when the two witnesses come, Satan will already have established all these sightings of UFOs and quote unquote aliens and abductions and all this stuff I talk about throughout the Corrupting the Image series. Okay. So when the two witnesses come, then Satan's going to need a really good alternative theory. And I believe that is when he will have, him and his cronies show up in their quote unquote UFOs or UAPs around the world and say, well, we're actually here to help you. I just went to see the Eternals movie, and I don't know, I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5. It was okay. It was entertaining. Let's put it that way. But it had this message throughout the story, is that the gods of old were really here to protect us. The gods of Babylon are here. They're our champions. They're to save us from the deviants and all this different stuff, right? Well, it turns out in the end, this is a spoiler, so if you want to go see it, don't listen. Anyway, what they discover in the end is that the great God, the celestial God that put them there, called a celestial, there's lots of celestials, but this really powerful being that created them and put them there was not telling them the truth. And he wasn't being forthright with what their mission really was. Turns out Earth is just supposed to be a big incubator for another celestial. And so then they fight against this. They fight against a God of heaven, if you will, a celestial, to do the right thing and to save human life. And I'm like, that's the story, right? That's the story right there. I would argue that is the conspiracy. And I would suggest that conspiracy is already being played in movie theaters around the world. That's being played on Netflix and Disney Plus and all this different stuff. We've already heard this conspiracy, but when it finally comes to that point, when the two witnesses show up, then you need an alternative theory and you need an alternative solution to get rid of these two guys. And that's where I would suggest that the world is going to say, yes, we will sign up, do whatever you need to do. We don't care the cost, because it's either whatever you're going to sell us or we die. And so we want to get rid of these two witnesses at any cost. And I would argue that's a huge part of the deception. Scott?
And if you think about it, I mean, again, if they come preaching a repentance, no cross-dressing, no more homosexuality, no abortion, no, it's not this free love society, or even what we get in watered down liberal churches, where there's almost no doctrine. It as far as Jesus really didn't mean what he said when he said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. It's all about loving others. And that's going to be a message of hate. And I believe what you were saying about the predictive programming, sort of like the Avengers Endgame and a lot of the other superhero type movies, which are just based on the Greek myths, which are based on the Babylonian myths, and all the research you've done, Doug. I mean, it's really not a lot of creativity. They're just borrowing from 30, I guess it'd be almost 4,000 plus year old storylines and putting a modern twist on them. But you do see that with the X-Men and these humans have superhuman, almost immortal type capabilities. The same thing with the Avengers, and that humanity unites to fight against this evil God that's going to come and wipe out the earth and destroy all mankind. Well, guess what? Yeshua, Jesus, is going to do exactly that if you don't repent. And so, but they flipped the script and made the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob our Messiah. They've made him to be the repent of their idolatry. They don't want to repent of their greed. They don't want to repent of their sexual promiscuity. They don't want to repent for abortion. All these sins that are just in our face now, and that's one reason I don't watch TV. I mean, you cannot watch TV without it being pushed down your throat. And it's open, blatant sin. We're in Romans 1. John says it. I mean, that's where I get my news, John. I still get my weekly news from you. And I love it when you say, and our guest celebrity prophecy teacher. I love it when you use the secular media to be your prophecy expert for the week. So
that's awesome. Hey, I've got another picture I want to show. It's picture day. Okay. So if people have studied Revelation chapter 9, again, this is in Corrupting Image 2. This was found on a kuduru stone. All right. So this is Pabilsag or Nergal, god of the dead. All right. God of the dead, god of the underworld. Now you can't see it in super detail
actually
from this picture.
Can I interject something here too? So
please,
so back to the image at the UN, what's called sort of like international peace and security thing, which is kind of interesting terminology that they use. The artist actually is from Oaxaca, Mexico, because I was doing a little research on it. And Oaxaca, Mexico is the place where they have this, it's like they have this huge Day of the Dead in Cave of the Dead or some kind of celebration there. And so I'm sure that some of that influenced this artist that made this image that's at the UN Plaza now.
Yeah, well said.
I think there's a connection there, though. So that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
and I heard something about their names. I think it was a husband and a wife team that created the statue and what their names actually mean. That might be a conspiracy. I don't know. I haven't researched. I just heard it on the internet, so it must be true.
Must be true. Yeah. Well, looking here at this kuduru stone from 1200 BC. This is a stone that they would put underneath a mantle, a door mantle, and it had various curses and stuff. So on this stone, you can see the god Nergal, and he is he's just another variation on a theme instead of what we saw the Anzu bird before. This is basically the same thing, but in a different format. Okay, I guess that's probably the easiest way to put it, and I won't get into all the details as to why, but. And then this would later become Sagittarius. Okay, so that's kind of significant that he later becomes Sagittarius, and it is very much made a little bit more family friendly, if you will. But if you take a look again at this thing, you can see that he has two heads. And again, I know it's a little bit hard to see. I'll see if I can maybe point out a little bit. But here is his human head. Can you guys see my pointer? I don't know if you can see it, but here's the human head, and here's the lion's head. All right. So in Revelation 9, it talks about what looks like two different creatures, but they're the same creature. There's just a composite image. The man's head, lion's head. He's got a bow. Really interesting. He's got horse's hooves. Right. It talks about how the shape of these locusts, quote unquote, were horses. He's got wings, of course. Then here you have the scorpion's tail. And then the part that really perplexed me for quite a while was it says it had a tail with a serpent head on this tail. Well, it just so happens that this image of Nergal, the tail, as it were, is actually a serpent head phallus. I'm not talking about the scorpion tail. I'm talking about the phallus. That is a scorpion head phallus. All right. So that's what's so astounding. And it's right on the money. 100% of what we see in Revelation chapter 9 is this thing right here. That's what's really so astounding about that, is that, John was seeing these things in his vision, things that had been drawn and then buried, hundreds or even maybe thousands of years prior to John. So that really, to me, that shows that it's the Holy Spirit that's making these things, that is revealing these things to John, but it's talking about those in an end times context. All right. So the fact that we have that creature at the UN, I don't know. Who knows what the artists were thinking? I have no idea. However, it's quite significant and interesting Well, I can't speak for their hearts, okay? But all I know is it's weird, okay? And it's weird that this would start to show up in these last days. To me, it seems like that's kind of a foreshadow.
Yeah, it's
I
probably
don't
a
know.
coincidence the EU building is built after the Tower of Babel. Yeah, it's probably just a coincidence the UN
Well,
has all
yeah,
these biblical, satanic,
yeah.
Luciferian
So
symbols. Probably just
I'm going to do the politician thing and revise and extend my remarks. I don't think it's overhyped then. No, by the way, the name of the artist is Jacobo and Maria Angelus.
Angelos.
Jacob and Mary Angels.
Well, that's
Probably just a coincidence.
Yeah.
probably just a coincidence.
Yeah, it
That's my college group of heathen friends. Some of them heathen, some of them are not. That we group, we're in a little group me chat together. I'm forever. This it's just coincidence.
What's Steve Bannon say? There are no conspiracies, but there are coincidences.
That's all there are.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I mean that it would show up now, and there's sort of either the dragon tail also on this statue also is kind of interesting.
Oh, and I mean, again, we mentioned about Babylon. I mentioned about Babylon being everything. I mean, we had the Travis Scott situation last month in November, and I've watched Daniel Ashley did a little video on it. A couple other people that they can be a little further out there than I am. I don't think they've gotten in the middle of the vortex of the pool, but man, the symbolism of that Travis Scott concert with the CERN and the mountains and see you on the other side. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. That they're satanic.
The all-seeing eye thing.
Oh yeah, it's
and
almost
I had
every
some
celebrity.
I had some friends, bless their heart, who said, that's nothing. He's just doing that for entertainment purposes. But I think that was way understated as to what was going on at that concert.
It's blatant and it's in God's face. And again, I believe we're seeing Romans 1, playing out like in fast forward almost. The acceleration you talk about the convergence of events, but just look at the acceleration and decline in morals. And
I have my grid, ACLU, acceleration, convergence, logistics, because Doug is talking about this thing, the foundation, bedrock, and all this other stuff, and then understanding. I think as we get closer, we'll understand things a little bit better, a lot better. I don't think we will. I know we will.
It's
That's
cool.
good.
I sent you guys an email, and I'm going to try to see if Elisa will join with us. She's not a prophecy teacher, but she's been doing a series on footsteps of Messiah. And what she's been mainly doing, obviously she uses the Bible as her main source, but what she'll look at is some of the ancient rabbinic commentary and how they viewed the end of this age, and that there would be a worldwide plague prior to, and that would be the footsteps of the Messiah. We in the church generally call it the birth pangs. The rabbis called it the footsteps. It's like, he's getting close to coming prior, and then there'll be a final 7 years of this age. And they don't even base it on Daniel 9, by the way. It's other passages and what would happen and unfold over those 7 years. It's been fascinating to see what they don't even have the New Testament, but what they see in the Hebrew scriptures as far as prophecy toward the end of the thing.
They were looking
not just
carefully.
the end of the age. Like Sunday, I'm using my starting text will be Jesus' discussion with Nicodemus in John chapter 3. Do you not know these things? He says. I mean, you're a leader of Israel. If you're a teacher of Israel, you don't know these things that I'm talking about. So, and it's sort of like he's going to ask the same question when he gets here the next time. Did you guys not understand what was going to happen? I kind of think that might be a question that we get.
He even says when he returns, will he find faith?
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of questions,
if he doesn't hurry up, maybe not.
We have a question from Dan's Things and Stuff. So do you think that it is more the ways of the serpent than the creatures themselves showing up much like the commandments of God is a mark on us. Dan, if I understand your question, my answer would be that all of those images that I was showing you, those are all, except for the woman, but otherwise, those are all variations on a theme, right? And one of the driving questions that I had when I was writing Corrupting Image 2 was, why is Satan called a great dragon? Now, I know that he is called a great dragon, but why? Okay. I mean, why that symbol? And can I find this anywhere in the ancient world? And I really figured I should be able to find that in the ancient world. If this is something that's true and legit and, it's an age-old conspiracy, then we should find it. And what I found blew me away. I mean, again, I found the Ushumgalu. That's a Sumerian word for a great dragon. Then you have the Mushhoshu, which I showed you a picture of. And then I showed you the Bashmu. Those are all one and the same, essentially. Okay, they're just different languages at different times in history. And so as the languages changed a little bit here and there, so you have these different terms, but they're all referring to Satan. That's what is very significant. And I traced it back to Mount Hermon. That's where the 200 angels came down, according to the book of Enoch. But what I also found there is, I didn't find it. It was Charles Warren who found an inscription up there back in 1867 or something like that. And like a good Brit, he took it to the British Museum. And it's been sitting there ever since. And I looked it up. I wanted to see the text for myself. And I found an amazingly incredible clue, which is really hard to explain because there's all these linguistic things that I have to explain. But bottom line, I found the secret name of Satan in that text. And it's ironically, it's the word B-A-D, bad. Okay. I don't know. Scott might say there's a conspiracy, right? Maybe it's the word bad, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe the scholar in me says, let's be cautious. The end times believer says, yes, of course, right? So this is where I'm trying to temper these two different thoughts here. But you find this name, Batios. I won't go into all the explanation of that, but that's the ancient name, the secret name of Enlil, who is Satan. And he's the one who gave the command to the 200 angels to come down on Hermon in the days of Noah, right? So astounding how it all fits together. And of course, that's just a little bit north of where we saw that geoglyph of the Bashan, the Bashmu in Akkadian. They're in the same area. And of course, what was that area called? It was called the land of Bashan. Who was hanging out there? Og of Bashan, right? When Jesus goes and does his ministry, where's he hanging out most of the time? In Galilee, which is in the shadow land of Bashan, right? I mean, those dwelling in darkness have seen a great light. They're dwelling in darkness because they're literally, or in a spiritual sense, they're spiritually in the land that is overshadowed by Bashan, which is next door to Satan's headquarters, right? So that's why all these things are happening there. And that was just phase one of overthrowing Satan. Phase two, of course, is coming. We understand that. But we have to understand the symbology first. Joel said he doesn't like my pictures because they're not in color. Sorry, Joel, that's what you get. I didn't draw these things. This is what comes out of the earth. So take them or leave them, but that's what we got.
Hey, Doug, on that issue, as far as back to the question, you obviously, the pictures you just showed us would have been what we would now call the Middle East, ancient Samaria, Babylon, et cetera, et cetera. But I find it fascinating that these same, maybe not identical, but very, very, very similar types of entities or beings or dragons. You see them in Asia. You see them in the Americas. You see them in African culture. And obviously, those of us who believe the Bible and believe all of it, we understand that at the Tower of Babel, which means confusion, the nations were divided into 70 and scattered all over the face of the earth. And so I don't think it's coincidence that you see in these Asian cultures and the Incas and the Mayans and the African cultures, a very similar type of being or entity, that dragon with the wings that sort of looks like a lion. So it's Again, Bible's just true. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
there's
So, kind of to tie it up here, I mean, is there a conspiracy? Yes. And of course, God was absolutely right to discuss this thing through the mouth of David back in Psalm 2, because guess what? There's a conspiracy. What's really interesting is David, as acting as a prophet, King David is speaking about the mountain of Bashan, right? Mountain Bashan, Hermon, they're the same place. And this is the place where he says that this is my mountain. And he says that the mountain of Bashan, the mountain of many peaks, is his mountain, and that the chariots of the Lord are 10,000 times 10,000, and that the Lord is going to take captivity from that area. Well, guess what? Where did Jesus go when he transfigured? On top of Mount Bashan, right? It's the very same place, right? So it's kind of mind blowing how it all goes back to that same general area. And yes, there is a conspiracy. Let me pull up one more scripture, guys, because I think this is a very important one that we have not really, I don't think we've ever dealt with it. And I think it's very germane to our discussion. So this is talking about after the return of Jesus, what's going to be happening. And so the whole earth is, as shaking like a hut, right? It's going to reel to and fro. It says it should come to pass in that day that the Lord will punish on high the host of exalted ones, and on the earth the kings of the earth. They will be gathered together as prisoners are gathered into the pit, and will be shut up in the prison. After many days they will be punished. All right. So right there, I'm not sure, I'm not aware of any other place that makes it so incredibly clear that this conspiracy, we often just see it played out in the lives of the kings of the earth, but there's this host on high that he's also going to gather, right? So what's behind the conspiracy are demonic, satanic forces, and they've been here. Now, in my opinion, you guys can take it or leave it, but I do document it in my book that angels, fallen angels, and demons are exactly the same thing. It's just a linguistic difference. Daemonia is a Greek word. Fallen angels is not even in the Bible, right? We talk the word Elohim, B'nai Elohim, etc. Right? Again, I won't go into all the details, but if you want the proof, check out the book. Right? It's in there. Right? So anyway, they understand. They've been working on this from the beginning of time, essentially. Yeah.
When we were in England in 4 years ago, that was back when people could actually travel places more easily. We went to the British Museum, and at the British Museum, that, of course, if you want to see a lot of these things, Dan or whoever asked the question, Dan's things and stuff, the pictures Doug has, you'll find a lot of these reliefs that were carved in stone at the British Museum in London. It's a phenomenal collection, and they were running a special exhibit when we were there. It had just opened. It was called Ashurbanipal, I believe. I don't know. I'm not up on how to speak ancient Syrian, but Ashurbanipal, and it says, "I am Ashurbanipal, king of the world, king of Assyria." And Patterns of Evidence, which does great work, patternsofevidence.com, has a blog post article and some pictures about that exhibit, and it talks about it. So these things recycle through the way Satan works, and so it seems like Satan had the upper hand in ancient Assyria, and the pictures, even the secular people were describing what you see on the reliefs there in that exhibit as appalling pictures and reliefs of human brutality that's really off the charts, as brutal as anything you will ever see. And I guess my suggestion is that if Satan was doing that then, what's he going to do now when he knows it's the final fight? is he going to come in that same influence? And I kind of think there's a pattern there that we need to be aware of.
And Doug brought up that verse just then about the heaven, the sons of Elohim, the Ben Elohim, the sons of God, these powers, these principalities. But again, just because you're average, even believer or non-believer or heathen or pagan, doesn't believe in these entities does not necessarily mean that the head puppets, the people that rule this world, the kings of this world, that they do not worship the Enlil, Satan, the false light, Lucifer. And that's what I believe exactly, that they have been elevated. They have essentially sold their souls to the devil. They know who they worship. And it's just unfathomable for a lot of people to realize that, just because you can't fathom why someone would do that, or if you're a non-believer, you don't even believe in this, and that just sounds crazy, doesn't mean it's not true. And that's why I believe there is a lot of truth to at these upper echelons elites and what they really, really do behind the scenes. And so that's where I do believe there's a lot of truth to it. Like Doug said, though, you can go down into, I call it the vortex. If you get into the vortex, then you really can't even relate to people if you go too far down the rabbit hole on some of these conspiracies, and you won't even be. And I think the enemy uses that to get people off their game, like whether, like Doug mentioned, the JFK is in hiding type thing, and some of the really crazy stuff that came out of the Q conspiracy. There was a lot of truth mixed in with some wackiness. So I think it's part of his deception tactics.
There's a lot of wackiness too, to be fair.
But there was a lot of truth.
People are nuts. All right, I want to share something. This is thinking about Enlil. So there's a man who was convicted in 1994, Damien Eschels, of what the prosecutors labeled satanic sex ritual slayings. And he's now, he got out of jail, unfortunately. He's now openly touting the power of summoning angels through the power of Enlil, and is teaching his high magic to subscribers through his Patreon page. And he recounts this experience he had, right? Listen to this. One morning when I was in the middle of the angelic invocations involved in the Shem operation, the name, okay, I experienced something that was initially disorienting and frightening. Suddenly, it felt like the very earth dropped away beneath my feet. I was surrounded by an incredible amount of light. It was so bright that it felt like I was standing in the middle of the sun. Then it felt like something snapped, and I was surrounded by darkness of an infinite void. The closest I'll ever be able to come to articulating what happened is this. I saw the nighttime sky. It was crystal clear, truly beautiful. And then across the vision of the sky, I saw words spelled out, just as if the wind were gently rippling across the stars as if they were wheat. The word was Enlil. So, of course, I began invoking him. Instead of calling upon all the angelic intelligences I'd been using, I invoked Enlil in all directions, east, west, up, down, and everywhere in between. The resultant energy I experienced was unlike anything I'd ever felt. Even after years of intense angel work, Enlil's presence was like feeling the unified power of 1,000 archangels. All right, I mean, so, we need to understand that the Satan's not just working in the traditional conspiracy kind of ways, but he's also working through, and by quote unquote conspiracy, I mean sort of the geopolitical kind of conspiracies. But Satan is also very much working through the lives and minds of people that are much more open to a direct contact, and maybe both, right? They may also be operating in some other ways, but this is Enlil, right? And that's what I discovered in Cryptic Image 2, is that Enlil is Satan, right? They're the same dude, right? So instead of saying it's Satan, I mean, that's so boring and so churchy and Bible and blah. But if you start saying, well, he's this higher power, this Enlil entity, this is part of the deception. This is part of the strong delusion that people are going to look to the ancient gods of the ancient world to come and save the day. And maybe it turns out that they're actually watching over humanity to protect us from other evil you know, aliens or advanced beings out there, right? That these guys are here to protect us and to save us. I think that's the essence of the delusion that we're looking at. And of course, having a conspiracy on many fronts is an absolutely necessary part of that, so that people will buy into the deception when it finally comes. All right. Well, gentlemen, I think we've covered it. That was good. There's a few questions I just wanted to get to. Let's see here. This is from Montana. What about the verse? I can't remember, that says God put it in their minds to do these things. Yeah. So Montana, that's actually from Revelation 17. I'm happy to go there. 17. I don't know. I think it's 18 or something like that. Okay. So let's back up here. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot and make her desolate and naked and eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind and to give their kingdom to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. Right. So, and part of this, I think we have to, and we cannot ignore the fact that God is wrathful against Babylon. Let's go to Revelation 18, because we see a really significant thing here. Talking about Mystery Babylon. Come out of her, my people, for her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. So if we understand that Mystery Babylon is the ancient kingdom of Babylon, not the geopolitical kingdom, understand that, but the spiritual kingdom that was established in the land of Iraq, okay, with the Tower of Babel, right? So we're talking about a real place, but it's like Hollywood. Hollywood's a real place, but the influence is, of course, worldwide. That's the same idea. So Babylon is a real place, but it's also a worldwide force, a worldwide phenomenon, or thought process, a kingdom. Okay, and so he's wrathful against that, and that is the icon of that is the woman who's riding the beast. So Satan has been using this woman that rides the beast, aka lust. That's the best word for her. Okay, and she'll be any lust you want, but that's what's been driving all these things. And then when we finally get to the place, when Satan gets to that place where he does not need that, he doesn't need to do the charades anymore, no more pretend. Now he can just take the mask off and here I am, world. Okay, like me or not, I now have the keys to the kingdom, as it were. And that's when it gets really ugly. So anyway, there's a conspiracy. It goes back to the very beginning, well, at least to the Tower of Babel. Well, beginning if you start with Satan, right? So he's been working on this conspiracy, and he intends to resolve it. But God is, I don't know, 1,000, 20,000 steps ahead of Satan, infinitely ahead of Satan. And all of Satan's amazing conspiracies that are quite impressive, for a created being. But God's like, right? And, and that's where it says that the Lord will laugh in derision, right? Psalm 2, we read that already, right? They're conspiring against the Lord and against his anointed. And what does God say? He who sits in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall hold him in derision, right? It's like, whatever, they're going to try all this stuff, but it's going to come to nothing, right? It doesn't mean they're not working overtime. They most certainly are working overtime, but in the end, it comes to nothing. So, well, gentlemen, with that, I think we're done. Any closing thoughts that you guys wanted to add? No? All right. Very good. Awesome. All right. Thanks, brothers. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I want to encourage you to get the Way Congregation app. You're going to love it. It's got really cool stuff. So check that out. And you want to get my book on pre-order, Corrupting the Image, Volume 3. It's coming. Really excited about it. Singularity, Superhumans, and the Second Coming of Jesus. Ooh, I can hardly wait. So it's coming out in February, but you can get the pre-order for 99 cents. So God bless.